Welcome to this latest edition of ABNcast. My name is Lee Hayhurst. I am the Editorial Director of Aviation Business News, and I'm here in the ABNcast studio.
And my name is Greg Whitaker, and I'm the editor of Aircraft Cabin Management magazine and Low Cost and Regional Airline Business magazine.
Welcome, Greg. Good to see you. So we're talking to Greg today because last week he attended the Sustainable Skies World Summit 2024, which took place not far from here in Farnborough Airport. So we're going to have a good chat about what was spoken about at that big event. All the main airlines were there and some of the big politicians. But before we get into the sort of the nuts of what and bolts of what was talked about, just set the scene for the event itself. It's a big annual event. What kind of people attend?
Yeah, this was my first appearance at the Sustainable Skies Summit, but I was very pleased to go because, as you say, there's a number of politicians turn up to this and a lot of industry decision makers, which is perhaps more relevant from our point of view. So we see people like Sean Doyle, Shay Weiss, representatives from Airbus, Boeing, Embraer, lots of people who can actually make real decisions on how we're going to decarbonise the aviation industry.
Yeah, and obviously this is a key factor for the industry, a key issue. Mm-hmm. We've recognised that with the new ABN website. We've got a sustainability section. You yourself have taken on the role of reporting for us on sustainability as well as your two magazine editorships. So where in your view, where are we in this move towards net zero, which is there's some serious targets out there, and actually they're starting to come along quite quickly. So we'll talk about a bit about how these people see the industry meeting its targets. But what's your assessment of where we are and what the industry is trying to achieve?
Yeah, well, it's interestingly because my assessment is that there is a lot of work to do in a very short amount of time. And does the industry have what it takes as a whole to do this? As we'll talk about later, one of the main issues is SAF. And this was one topic that just wouldn't go away at the summit. Not that no one wants to use SAF, it's just they can't get hold of it. We expect, or were promised, to have several refineries here in the UK up producing SAF, by now, really. And there are still plenty of plans, lots of interesting things in the pipeline, so to speak, but none actually producing in any significant scale yet. Yeah. So we face the slightly strange prospect of airlines being fined by governments for not running on SAF that they aren't able to buy, and SAF producers not having any responsibility themselves for not yet producing the SAF. Yeah. So it's certainly a topic. We've got a long way to go. The amount of jet fuel used next year, I think, was going to be the highest ever used
in history of the aviation. Yeah.
And it's only going one way at the moment, which is perhaps not the way things should be.
And of course, what that does is then for the activists out there, and you have quoted the group Stay Grounded and their reaction to this very event. They talk about greenwashing, which the industry is always open to that accusation, but they repeat the view that the only answer to this is less flying. Obviously, the industry finds that a very difficult idea to take on board because actually flying is only going in one direction, and certainly demand is as high as it's ever been. We spoke to Willie Walsh a few ABN casts ago on this very subject, and his view isn't to cut certainly short haul flying. He believes the biggest impact is in long haul. So what do you think the industry has to do to counter the argument that actually there's a simple answer here, and that's just do less?
Yeah, I mean, the counter argument is that if we produce SAF and run planes on SAF, which can be done, the airlines are ready for it now. The technology is proven, it's perfectly safe. Most of the planes are ready to run SAF. If we had it, we could do it. And it's going to take a collaboration between, frankly, governments all over the world to, one, actually get behind SAF production, and two, guarantee a price so people can invest in it over a long term. I mean, that should be a quite safe investment. Every single drop of it produced is sold at the moment.
Yeah.
But you need to give investors a certain, certainty.
Yeah. It's cost a lot to invest in the technology to do. We've spoken in previous ABNcast to Aviox, which wants to make SAF out of household waste. Yeah. I know you spoke to a company recently. Who was it?
Firefly.
That's human waste.
Human waste. Yeah.
So there's plenty of feedstock potentially, or there's plenty of potential feedstock as long as you've got the technology to turn it into usable fuel. But there's simply no factories out there churning it out at the minute.
No, I mean the truth remains that. As you say, there's nowhere to produce it. Refineries are busy producing regular fuels, including jet fuel, which are, from the oil company's point of view, are selling it at volume, and they don't need to be switched over to producing something which at the moment is still quite niche and expensive. However, this can change. I've written before about the spindle top gusher in 1903, which going off topic here slightly.
Okay, sounds interesting.
Before this gusher was hit in the United States, the world's economy was largely based on coal.
Yeah.
There was a certain amount of oil, but once this drill had this strike had been made, the whole world switched to an oil-based economy very quickly, within a decade.
Yeah, so things can move quickly, is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Once capacity's there.
Once the momentum gets behind it, I mean, this week alone, actually, I mean, right now, there is a different summit being held in Europe, which has most of the world's transport leaders, departments of transport leaders, etc., talking about the need to do something, but getting an agreement from world governments is much harder than getting the aviation industry to agree.
Yeah. So a lot of that you picked up on with Mark Harper while you were at the summit. You grabbed Mark for a quick chat. He is the UK Aviation Minister, Secretary of State.
Yeah, that's right. So he's the Transport Minister, the Secretary of State for Transport. So
you grabbed a short amount of time with him. Interesting, I thought. I think he picked up on a few of those points we've spoken about already. So let's have a listen to that first, and then we can talk about what he said.
Thank you ever so much for speaking to us.
No, it's a pleasure.
Harper. How will the government increase production of SAF? I mean, in your 2021 mandate, we're supposed to be running on 10% by 2030, and we're nowhere near that level of production yet. What are the plans?
So, several things. First of all, I think just publishing the mandate, setting it out, demonstrating we've listened to industry, and then committing to legislating for it this year to kick in from next year, as we promised, is really important. So actually talking to people in the industry, just the fact we've done that, I think gives people the confidence to invest. And the revenue certainty mechanism that we're consulting on, which was an ask, we'll be able to set out the results of that later this year. And again, that's another measure that's really important for SAF producers. The third thing, obviously, is the money that we've made available through the Advanced Fuels Fund to help pump prime some of those projects. I think are all things that are very positive, and we've got companies now investing. I've talked to several of them myself about their specific plans. Lots of capital investment coming from themselves, and actually getting lots of interest now from airline customers. And that's what you need. If you're going to get these companies to invest in production, they need customers who are going to buy the SAF, and they are now getting them because those airlines know that they need to be able to deliver that because of the SAF mandate.
Of course. I mean, some of the companies that have received the grant, I was speaking to Firefly the other day. Great projects. They will produce lots of SAF, but I don't know if it's going to be ready by 2030. Are you confident that is enough production for that to happen?
Yes, we are, and I think if you look at some of the players who are investing in this, some of them are very large companies putting a lot of capital in and able to scale, which is the important thing. So look, we've deliberately started off the mandate from next year, obviously at 2%, going up in a linear fashion to 10%. So there's a very clear path for companies to achieve. And part of the reason for consulting on it and getting that feedback from industry was to deliver something that's both ambitious but also achievable. I mean, you want to push people. We're trying to get people to do things that they wouldn't do if you couldn't put the mandate in place. But the feedback we got was it was very achievable, but challenging. So that's getting that right level of tension, I think, in the process.
Some airlines have expressed concern to me that they will be fined for not running on SAF when there is no SAF to be had at airports. Can you alleviate some of that concern?
Well, look, one of the things that we've made very clear is that we've got there'll be some formal legal review mechanisms, but we've also made it clear we're going to keep this under review, and we've also been very clear in the publication that we're going to make sure that we mitigate the impact on consumers as well. We've been very clear as a government that we think flying is a good thing. It's good that people can fly. We do not believe in what some people euphemistically call demand management, which is code for pricing poorer people out of flying. We want people to be able to fly. And so we're going to keep this under review and make sure that you don't see, for example, the impact on ticket prices going outside the normal range. And the modelling and analysis we've done suggests that won't be the case. But we will keep this policy under review. Look, we'll keep it under review. We'll see how the plants get built. We'll see the supply of SAF. But we're confident, based on what we've done so far and the feedback from the consultation, that we're in good shape to be able to deliver it.
Yeah, I mean, you made it clear in your speech just now that you don't want to price the travelling public out of the market, which is fair and good. But is there an argument for increased passenger duty on frequent flyers, for example?
Well, we're not attracted to that at all. We think the thing I always say to people is the lesson from the pandemic, when we told people they couldn't fly, was for members of Parliament. We then heard from our constituents about all the reasons why flying is incredibly important, not just for leisure, which is important in itself, but all of the reasons for connecting families, connecting people to loved ones around the world, sharing those important human moments, when someone's at one end of life, when you've got people being born into the world and people leaving. I want to make sure people can do that, and I want to make sure that's available for everybody. And the way you deal with the environmental impact of flying is not stopping people doing it. It's about decarbonising it and using technological advancement. And the thing about this industry is everyone gets that. This is an industry where the debate is not about whether you have to move to a sustainable model, decarbonise. It's about how we do it and the pace, and that is very refreshing, and it's a great conversation to have, and it's why things like the Jet Zero Council are very successful. We've got all of the bits of industry involved, academia, manufacturers, airports, airlines, all pointing in the same direction, all wanting to go at quite a pace.
Yes, you said you were done.
Final question, please, Greg, just because we're out of time.
All right, no problems. I'll save asking you when the election is then, and keep it to because you're not going to tell me.
Well, I don't know. That's a decision. That's a decision for the Prime Minister. And its working assumption, it'll be the second half of the year.
Yep. And you said you were dogmatic about the need to decarbonise, but not necessarily how. Is the government also investing into other things? I mean, we always talk about SAF. I mean, we do.
Yeah.
But there are other methods as well. Is there serious research being put into by the DfT into hydrogen, etc.?
Yeah. So look, we've been very clear. We're technology neutral. It's not for us to pick technological winners. SAF is clearly going to be very important, and hence why we're putting the research into that. But we also think hydrogen is important. We spent the agenda of last month's Jet Zero Council was entirely focused around hydrogen. There's taxpayers' money going into development of hydrogen technology. Lots of companies are investing in that. Some of those here today. And there are also companies looking for sub-regional aircraft, purely battery electric aircraft as well. And we're also involved in that. So I think, look, there's going to be a mix of technologies for planes. There's also going to be the need to do carbon capture and storage as well, to do the final piece, which is why it's net zero, not zero. And I think you have to look at all of those technologies, and the Jet Zero Council and the three government departments, the Net Zero Department, mine, and the Business Department, are working together on all of those forms of technology. And the exact mix of which of those makes what contribution to getting us to jet zero, I don't think we know. SAF is clearly going to be a big player in that, but hydrogen will be as well, and so will battery electric across that mix of different journey types and so forth.
Brilliant. Minister, thank you ever so much
Pleasure.
for your time today. Really
Good.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
so much, Greg.
Nice to see you.
No problem at all.
So well done getting in a question about the next election.
Yes.
I believe the good money this week's on an early July election, but
Yes.
you didn't get the actual answer. But
No.
Well done for trying.
I should say as well that as we're almost certainly going to have an election announced before this recording goes out, we will be trying to get hold of the shadow minister, transport minister as well, to ask her some questions.
Yeah.
For the sake of balance.
Political neutrality, which of course we prize very highly here at ABN. And there was towards the end of your 7 minutes with Mark, a voice came in from left field. I guess that was one of his political.
Yes, that was one of the spads. That was
yeah, just winding things up in case you asked him something really difficult.
And they were quite insistent that I only had 6 minutes with him as well.
Yeah.
So
Well done for doing that. But what did you take from what he said? I mean, he's very confident and actually quite positive about the prospects for SAF as we were discussing, and thinks that the targets that the UK is setting are reasonable, are achievable, and it's about the pace now of getting this stuff across the line. He seemed that. I think you did ask him about whether SAF's the only answer, and of course there are other things going on, but he seemed very confident that SAF would come on stream.
Yes, from the way he spoke and from his speech that he made earlier in the conference, it does seem that he is committed to increasing or starting serious scale production of SAF here in the UK. But where I think he is perhaps not quite on the money is the amount of time it takes to build a refinery, particularly when we're using the technologies we were discussing earlier. These are new, and the idea of actually getting the fuel produced at scale and certified before 2030, I'm not sure that we're alone going to have it. That's why I say we need more global cooperation on this.
Yeah.
On the subjects of cooperation, I mean, we're seeing some fairly unusual things between airlines. Shewais spoke about making a radical collaboration with British Airways and others.
Shew's Virgin, which would be quite something because the
exactly,
two
because they're
don't
old rivals.
exactly meet eye to eye. Yeah.
I know, but they sat next to each other and they agreed on this point.
Yeah. But this can't be a competitive issue. You can't have some airlines go, "Oh, we're better than them at sustainability." It's something going back to our protesters. They don't want to see the industry competing on this. They want to see the industry working collaboratively together on it and making big changes.
Yeah, and to keep a level playing field, you can't have one airline paying 6 times more for fuel than its competitor.
Yeah.
So if everyone is buying SAF at an agreed price, then everything gets a lot simpler.
Yeah. What Mark also touched on, what we started talking about, was if the answer is to do less flying, and if he's not in favour of that, you probably expect a politician to say that, because difficult for a politician to turn around and say, well, I'm sorry, but your 2 weeks in Spain is no longer acceptable. You should stop that flying. That's really unnecessary. Not many votes in that, I shouldn't think. But he kind of went a bit further than that, really. He said, look, well, during the COVID crisis, we saw how important the aviation industry is to people, obviously to the economy, but also to people's lives and keeping in touch, seeing people. I guess that's a positive thing for the industry to see the politicians are thinking in that way.
Yes, of course. We have a certain amount of bias here at ABN in that we love planes, we love flying, we love going to places, and we think more people should travel. It broadens the mind, but you can't argue that the number of aviation has to do its part to reduce emissions, and this can't just be SAF at some undefined point in the future. Equally, while I see the point that the group Stay Grounded were making, they were talking about regional travel and this kind of stuff. I mean, if you start cutting low-cost travel, then you're making flying like it used to be something for the elites on special occasions.
That is the interesting point, isn't it? I mean, Mark, he said this is demand management idea. Yeah. Okay, so you manage on demand. So you use the price mechanism, which inevitably means you're pricing out the people least able to pay. And yet, I suppose Stay Grounded talk about the industry continuing to allow wealthy minorities to fly. Well, that's the opposite of what's been happening in aviation over the years. I mean, EasyJet, Ryanair are not exactly the preserve of the rich and wealthy. Quite the opposite. They've brought flying. They've democratized the idea of going on a flight for a holiday. I certainly didn't when I was young. So in some ways, this isn't a question of whether only the wealthy can fly. I mean, you kind of want that. You don't want to have to take the aviation back to a situation in which only the wealthy can afford to do it.
No, and equally, we've here in the UK, we've started charging APD, air passenger duty, at a higher rate on premium seats. So in some ways, it's getting more expensive for the rich to fly, and still maintaining a very low cost for everybody else. But with that, I do see the argument that the environment doesn't really care who's flying.
Yeah.
It's the fact that we are. I mean, another aspect about the conference I found very interesting was the subject of contrails, which I'd read a bit about before, but I hadn't really. I know it's been spoken about at EU level a little bit recently, but it was quite surprising, and indeed the moderator noticed he was surprised that the audience for that was all of us from all across aviation, not just like the scientists in the room, like these non-CO2 things that are increasing the greenhouse effect, and now being looked at seriously, because everything has got to change if we are to make a real difference and be allowed to fly.
And when we talk about contrails, there's the contrail conspiracists out there.
Well, there are some. I mean, that's not what we're talking about.
Hesitate to call them loons, but there's the contrails conspiracists. But there's a real serious issue with contrails, isn't there?
There's a serious issue
where it's a non-CO2 pollutant high in the atmosphere.
High in the atmosphere. That's right, and it's being looked at very seriously. Equally, there are people talking about global warming who I just didn't expect to see there. One was a American general whose name I have written down.
I've got him here. It's Kevin Billings.
Kevin W. Billings. He's a great big 5-star American general.
Okay.
But he said, it isn't woke to talk about climate change. It's something that's affecting us all, even with military planes. Everyone's got to take this serious. And he came up with some ways that the US Air Force and the RAF are working together to reduce emissions.
Okay.
And they're quite technical ways, but I think that is something worth looking at.
Yeah, it wouldn't be surprising if some of the answers came from the military. Quite often that's the case with technologies. It developed for military purposes and then finds a civilian usage. You described him as quite a scary man, this Kevin.
He scared me.
Billings. In what way?
I don't know. He just seemed like.
Did he come armed?
I think he could probably run a war himself. I'm sure he's a lovely man, by the way.
He's an honorary group captain. You'd expect him to.
If he's listening, please don't shoot me.
Well, yeah, so our time is virtually up, but I'm sure it was a fascinating couple of days. It was 2 days, wasn't it?
Yes, that's right.
Conference.
Yes.
So a lot of time put aside for this. Just to sum up, really, what did you take? What did you feel coming away from it? Did you come away with a greater deal of optimism that this is something the industry is really seriously trying to tackle?
Yes, it is. I think it is good that everyone is coming together talking about this. I'm really hoping that some action is put together from this. Also just finally, there were sideshows, exhibitions on technology that will help with this. SAF, of course, but other technologies as well, like the electronic tug wheels that a company called Wheel Tug. That
I've seen those. guys,
because you can spend more time taxiing than you can on a flight for some regional flights. The old, in climate terms, the old enemy Drax was there, but they were talking about carbon capture and things like this, which I thought was an experimental technology, but it looks like it's something they can actually build, and we're seeking investors. Zero Avia and guys with hydrogen power planes. We got to address the long-term future as well as things we can do in the immediate term. So it was good that there was a good cross-section of the industry there, and let's hope it turns into something real.
Yeah. Well, we haven't even spoken about hydrogen, but you mentioned it there. Clearly, it's another option. I know EasyJet, for instance, are very much pushing on the hydrogen technology. So we'll see how that plays out. This is a topic we'll be doing again and again. I'm actually off to the IATA AGM in a few weeks' time. Clearly, it's going to be something that's spoken about there at length. So look out for our coverage of that, and we'll probably speak again, I'm sure, in the not too distant future about this very topic. So thanks for reporting back from Farnborough for us. That's all been very good insight into what's going on. So thanks a lot, Greg.
No problem at all. Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this latest edition of ABNcast. Do please make sure you don't miss future editions by subscribing on our YouTube channel or on Spotify. Thanks very much. We're delighted that our friends at Amadeus have agreed to be the launch sponsor for ABNcast. And while they do not endorse the opinions and views expressed, they are keen to support a new forum for open discussion and debate around the future of aviation. Amadeus' technology powers the global travel and tourism industry, inspiring more open ways of working, more connected ways of thinking, always with an eye on how the industry can evolve, on how the travel industry can better serve travellers, bring people together, explore new experiences, and do business. Travel should be meaningful and personal, and it must be centred around the traveller, which is why Amadeus is investing to create their technology to put more power into people's hands. As an industry, we only progress by working together, and Amadeus' open platform is connecting the entire global travel and hospitality ecosystem. Our environment, our communities, and our destinations matter. Together with our customers and industry partners, Amadeus is working to make travel a force for social and environmental good, and ABNcast will be placing a specific focus on these themes in future editions. To find out more, visit www.amadeus.com and make sure you subscribe to ABNcast, which you can do on Aviation Business News' YouTube channel or on Spotify, so you don't miss out on any future edition. And please tell your friends and colleagues all about us. Thanks very much.